ground, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I'm your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle Bird. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing peachy. Hope everybody's week is going swimmingly so far. But if not, fear not, because Daddy is here. Okay. The Apron Bump Podcast is here to hopefully cure those ailments of whatever's going on in your week. Because Progress Chapter 26, the show we are covering today, there's a few things on this show that are probably worse than whatever you're going through. So, Progress, I mean, look, these shows, this era, great era of wrestling, great shows from Progress, and this one's no different. We got a lot of great wrestling on this show. It's kind of a weird time for Progress, though, because even though I don't know a lot of what happens after this, my guest on this show, for one, but other people as well have kind of let me know that this era is kind of a transition period for Progress. And it's funny how, like, kind of how wrestling overall kind of treats these transition periods. Because, like, last week, covered Royal Rumble 2003. You could argue that WWE was still in a transition period at that point as well. So we get Progress's take on it. You got a lot of people that are, like, going off, like Will Ospreay, for example. Huge fixture in Progress up to this point. Is going on to Japan. And we all know the mark that Ospreay would make and is still making on Japan. So you got that. You got people going to NXT. You got like your Prince Devitt's going to NXT. You got like Mark Andrews going to TNA. You got a lot of people coming in and out. So a lot of new faces on this show. New faces to Progress at this point, but they are faces that we see on WWE programming on a weekly basis, and AEW for that matter. So kind of a fun time capsule this episode was, but a lot of good wrestling. A lot of variety on the show too, because of course you got the good wrestling. Like you got the main event, which is Marty Scurll, the new champion who just defeated Will Ospreay at the last chapter. You got Marty Scurll defending his Progress Championship against Mark Haskins in a belter of a match. Awesome stuff. And then you got like the really gritty stuff, the no knee pads, like kind of stuff with Timothy Thatcher versus Jack Gallagher as well. You also got some mixed tag action. You got some women on the show, which is arguably the best match of the card. And then you got, a match with a gimp, a can of whipped cream, lots of bare asses, and Mr. Cocko. So lots of variety for better or worse on this show, but we got a lot to get into, and we have a fun time talking about it. Who is we? Well, I brought on one of my favorite podcasts on British wrestling, the Tea and Tights Wrestling Podcast, returning to the show. This time, Andy coming on to represent for the boys at the T and TTP. The Tea and Tights Wrestling Podcast. They cover a lot of like European wrestling, so your current day Progress, WXW, Rev Pro, all that stuff. They also get into, the major news, the worldwide news of the major, your WWEs, your AEWs, all that stuff. They do interviews too. So again, just like this show, chapter 26, you get a lot of variety from the Tea and Tights, and they got a lot of new content coming out very soon. So be sure to jump on the train. Go check out the Tea and Tights Wrestling Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. I'll put all of their info in the description as always. Really entertaining podcasts. I tell them, I don't know if we were recording when I told them this, but they're my go-to when I need when I want to just hear about what's going on in the European wrestling scene. They're my go-to, and they're a pleasure as always to bring on, because last time I covered Progress, sometimes I bring in Americans that don't know what they're getting into, and then sometimes I bring in the experts to reel me in a little bit, but we have a good old time talking about some old school British wrestling. So with that, I've babbled enough. Wait, no, I haven't. First of all, Apron Bump on all the social medias. Go follow me. Go follow the YouTube. Subscribe if you're not already. Give this video a like. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. What's your favorite British cuisine? I hope to see a lot of fish and chips in the comments. But hey, if you're just jumping in cold, or maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to give Progress Wrestling a shot, and you want to hear me recap with a variety of guests. You want to hear me recap every chapter up until now, 1 through 26. Go to apronbump.com, and you can go to the episodes tab, and you could filter down to any era or promotion that I cover, and you could filter down to Progress Wrestling. And that'll bring you to all of the Progress Wrestling chapters that I've covered. Like I said, number 1 through 26 so far. And then binge away, daddy. Look, I'm learning just like you guys are learning. And I'm learning what a rent boy is. I'm learning, soccer references, geography. I mean, you get it all here on the Apron Bump. Why would you listen to anything else, really? But you're not listening to anything else, right? You wouldn't do that to me. Progress Wrestling, Chapter 26, with myself and Andy from the Tea and Tights podcast. I don't know if you're doing announcing stuff, or because you do backstage announcing and interviews and stuff with local promotions.
Big Daddy Dan has kind of become the Full Force Wrestling ring announcer, which is fantastic. It's actually something he wanted to do long before we started the podcast. Mm-hmm. So having that done was absolutely excellent. We also got the chance to do a commentary for Phenomenal Elite Wrestling, which was an incredible experience to be able to provide a commentary for a local promotion. And I think both of them were seen by good couple of thousand people, so good fun.
Yeah. Commentate on any Jack Sexsmith matches?
Do we have to talk about as soon as let's just say this card did have quite a few people who maybe be seen as a bit we can talk about Sexsmith was certainly one of them, and this because all these older Progress shows you always have that, right? But I feel like this card in particular felt more dense with those people. But I mean, we'll get into it. Yeah.
Some of the matches maybe didn't age well. We'll just put it that way.
Indeed, and they're in a transitional period right now because they lost, no more Mark Davis on the card, no more Eddie Dennis, no more Will Ospreay, no more Zack Sabre Jr., no more Jimmy Havoc, because they've all gone off to do some big time things. And one thing we also see with this card is a lot of the Projo, the academy students from they set up their own academy at this time, and you can see a lot of the academy students trying to push through at this during this period. Yeah, because like you said, I noticed that too. There's no Will Ospreay on this show. That's the first time that's happened in quite a while. Just lost the Progress title the last chapter. So and at this point, I mean, he's all over the place. He's probably in the States too. So I imagine his dedication to Progress is probably going to slowly kind of decrease. But I think right now for him, it would have been Super Juniors. It would have been his first time doing the NJPW Super Juniors.
Right, because I think that's really where I first saw Will Ospreay was in Japan. In my mind, he's like the Japan guy. So I imagine, that's going to be his main focus going forward here. But I know he comes back to Progress here and now. But But yeah, lots of Projo guys on this show. Lots of debuts. So interesting new faces, interesting faces that I've seen before, but not in this environment. But overall, before we dive into the matches, Chapter 26, what'd you think of it?
Overall, I actually watched it one time. I've watched it twice. I watched it when you were first asked me to come on the show. I thought, grab and watch it. And I watched it again recently. And the second time round, I enjoyed it a bit more than I did the first time. I don't know. It didn't quite hit the first time. But the second time, when you look back at some of it, the variety in particular, the fact that every match was something different and something we'll definitely get onto as we talk about each sort of like type of match, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. It's not the best show that I've seen for Progress so far, but I mean, none of them are bad. I mean, it was a solid show for sure. And like you said, it's a transition era, so lots of things getting started, a lot of seeds getting planted, lots of storylines that are kind of in the middle, but I feel like we're culminating to other stuff here. But but it opens up Chapter 26. We got a 4-way tag team match. So just throwing a bunch of people out there right away.
Yeah.
So we got they did the debut of Joe Coffey in Progress, teaming with Damian O'Connor, or Big Damo for anyone unaware, versus the Dazzler team, the debut of this team as well, the team of Daryl Allen and Earl Black Jr., versus the team of Sweet Jesus, the team of Chuck Mambo and Pastor William Ever, versus The Origin, represented here by Dave Mastiff and Zach Gibson. So we got a lot of names in this match. Anything in particular stick out to you among the people that were in this match?
It was great to see Coffey get a huge reception, his debut, but the fans all knew who he was. I think we should have mentioned, obviously, this is actually their first time in Manchester as well.
It's actually the second time in Manchester.
Second time in Manchester.
Yes, so the first time was Chapter 24, so it's still a very new premise for them, but yeah.
But but you can see the crowd knew exactly who Joe Coffey was, and they all started the Iron Man chant, and it was your typical 8-man tag. The Zach Gibson and Dave Mastiff was a bit of an odd pair, and the fact that both of them joined Origin was always a bit weird.
Yeah, I was going to ask, were Joe Coffey and Damian O'Connor, were they a prevalent tag team, or is this like just the first time they've been slapped together?
I'm sure they probably tagged together at some point, but I can't say they were an out-and-out tag team elsewhere.
Yeah, where was Joe Coffey? Because, I mean, he hasn't appeared on Progress yet, but the crowd clearly knew who he was. I mean, he probably got the biggest pop out of all these guys. Where was he, like, wrestling mainly at this point, if you remember?
So he would have been over in ICW at Scotland, coming through underneath the Wolfgangs and the Drew Galloways,
right.
But he certainly had a lot of prospect. He's a big lad. I think he was a former rugby player as well, so he spent a little bit of time, and he got into wrestling due to his older brother, Mark Coffey. Obviously, Gallagher now on NXT. Good to see that they're still doing good, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Zach Gibson always just makes me think of the most wasted. He is so talented in everything he does. And
so are him and James Drake, are they gone from WWE or are they not? Because I keep seeing them on NXT. I don't know if they've like taped episodes or what, but I'm a little confused on that.
Fightful reported their release. Oh, no, sorry, reported they asked for their release, and I think then Meltzer said they got given their release, but obviously that's not been the case, I assume, because they have been working. And I just want that, with Aussie Open being in such a position that they're in right now, I can imagine GYV versus the Aussie Open once again, because when you get to about Chapter 50, when they had an incredible rivalry, and I'd love to see that spark up on the main stage that it deserves.
For sure. Yeah, I love GYV. Hopefully they get some shine somewhere. But, and yeah, the Dazzler team. So I've seen Daryl Allen before. I'm more familiar with him and his team with RJ Singh back in the very early days of Progress.
I was about to ask, is this his third tag team?
What was the second, other than RJ Singh?
wasn't it the Geezers alongside Diamond something? Maybe that's a later.
Sebastian and I can't think of the other guy's name, but if that is a thing, I don't know if maybe he joins up with them later.
Maybe.
But I've only seen him with RJ Singh, and he was like just, a plucky baby face early on. I was very surprised to see this being like a heel team, is what it seemed like to me, at least. I'm not too familiar on Earl Black Jr., but yeah, it was a very odd. Like I was fully expecting like a rah babyface team to come out there, but they have this like ominous music and everybody's booing them. So
he's become the head trainer at Progress now with Jimmy Havoc moving on. I think him and RJ sort of like become the head trainers. So the whole gimmick switch was to say, I can be a trainer because I'm a great wrestler. So he ditches his high flying and he starts to show more of a British technical wrestling style.
Yeah. Okay. I can get behind that, especially with like Will Ospreay and guys like that getting over, like doing the high flying stuff just so well. I could see him. I could see a style switch being beneficial to him for sure. And Sweet Jesus, I've seen a handful of Sweet Jesus matches. They had an awesome match against SDS a few chapters ago, so I'm all for those guys. What are your thoughts on Chuck Mambo and Bill Ever?
So these are two of the guys that we're seeing coming from the Projo kind of graduation, and Chuck is he's so skinny. I mean, he's still quite actually small now, but he's actually put on weight since then. And of course, him and TK Cooper, the Sunshine Machine, are just an amazing tag team now. The fans really get behind Chuck Mambo to begin with, but Progress never really pull a trigger on him. Not until more recently with Sunshine Machine. William Ever, he has a really good run, and I won't spoil anything, but yeah, he has a good run to come, and eventually he because he tried to stick up for somebody else, he's kind of blackballed now as well.
There's a little bit of that on the rest of this card too. We'll get to that, but
yeah.
But like you said, it's a good match. I mean, by nature, there's 8 guys in here. It's going to break down eventually. Some fun double team stuff. You got Sweet Jesus doing so Chuck Mambo has somebody in a surfboard, and then he transitions into a suplex from Ever. You got the Origin just being shitty heels in the corner. They keep rejecting tags in the beginning. But then Joe Coffey gets a hot tag, and the crowd is all for the Iron Man Joe Coffey, which is just he's like the exact same guy, just has an Iron Man mask when he comes out. He does a butterfly swing, so has a butterfly lock and just swings the guy around, and then gets 2 other guys and does a combination airplane spin with a giant swing. And then you got Damo, his partner, getting in there with a double follow-away slam and sentons. That team, they're super over. They're kicking ass here. And then you got the silly, and you got everybody getting in there to do suplexes on each other. You got a 6-way suplex. Damo and Mastiff have a face-off, so two big boys going at it, which I thought was fun. But then ultimately, Zach Gibson rolls up Chuck Mambo for the win. So the Origin gets the win here. The other 2 guys of the Origin are the tag team champions. So I'm interested in what that means, or if this is just a way to kind of further solidify the Origin. But
yeah, it's kind of a way to say no one deserves a tag team shot because our guys are the second best, and I actually worked out the legal people were Big Damo and Earl Black Jr. because they do legal tags for about 90% of the match. And then that last little bit, all falls apart. No one's tagging in and out. Referees just pinning it, counting any pin. It's kind of like your typical PWG indie opener.
It's Lucha Rules. I think is the thing. If you just look at a guy, it counts as a tag. I think is how it works. But yeah, good match. Kind of a bizarre aftermath here. So I guess so. The Origin win, they walk away, and then it cuts back to the ring, and Damo and Coffey are just beating down everybody. So I could tell there was a heel turn. The crowd seemed kind of confused. I don't know. I guess if they go eventually join the Origin, it seems like a heel turn. But I don't know. What do you think of that post match beatdown?
Yeah, because the first they attack the heel team, El Black Jr. and Darrell Allen, so that gets them some cheers. But then, of course, they attack Chuck Mambo and William Eaver afterwards, which gets them the boos. I guess it's a way to say that these guys are going to be dominant. And, of course, they haven't introduced the Atlas yet, but you can still now see they're building a heavyweight division almost with the introduction of Damo and... Joe Coffey.
Right. So, but we get a little something different in this next match. We got Bubblegum versus Jack Sexsmith. This is one of those matches where if I was watching and somebody walked by while I was watching, I would have no excuse. I mean, this is just... I mean, Progress has had its fair share of comedy up to this point, but this is just...
This is DDT.
That's what else when the little spot with like Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi and the whole I mean, it made me almost like Bubblegum because I'm not a big Bubblegum guy, but Jack Sexsmith was so obnoxious. I was like, God, for the love of God, just kill this guy. So, how would you describe this match, Andy?
This was for the drunken revelers that would attend Progress on a regular basis. This was for the over 18 crowd of
I would say so.
wrestling, and it's definitely not for me. Jack Sexsmith, he was just a gimmick and nothing else. He wasn't even particularly a great wrestler. Bubblegum at least had the fact that he was a good wrestler, a very experienced wrestler. But I mean, is it no surprise in what came out about both of these competitors?
And that's like knowing that while watching this match makes it kind of hard to watch because I mean, first of all, if you're not familiar with Jack Sexsmith, anybody listening, he comes out with a gimp. Not a limp, a gimp. So some leather-bound person on a leash. And he comes out with them, and then Jack has this can of whipped cream that he's waving around phallically. Just squirting it into people's mouths. You know, they say no, but he still does it. So he shoots whipped cream into an old lady. It's a whole thing.
He does Mr. Cocko, but it's with a bloody condom, so it's Mr. Cocko. It's I guess right. What's it? Who's that guy? Finn Balor's old partner in New Japan. He always gets his ass out, and I guess it's like that. He's just somebody. But to sit on crowd people, whilst
that was a lot.
Yeah,
that was. Because Bubblegum does a sunset flip on the Jack and pulls his tights down. And of course, Jack isn't going to pull his tights up because why would he? That's just wasting time, right? And like you said, he gets like knocked to the outside at some point, and then Jax is rubbing his ass all over the people in the crowd. They seem to like it, but it was.
Although the fans do eventually chant for him to pull his pants up.
Yeah, after like 8 minutes of it, it's like, okay, I'm tired of looking at your ass, but. It's a gimmick, I guess.
Yeah. Do I need to clarify for the American audience what a rent boy is? Has that been discussed before on your...
I'm vaguely familiar, but please explain to me and anybody else.
Well, a rent boy typically it started in the Chelsea area, but it was male prostitutes. So that's what they call rent boys. And when he makes the joke about Adam Johnson being the gimp, Adam Johnson is a footballer who had a relationship with a younger girl who shouldn't have and had to go to jail for it. So they would. That's why those were the chants at points. Sort of just for the fans out there that did watch it and may not know what was going on, what was the understanding behind it. Yeah, that's the understanding behind it. This is not a great gimmick. Was
Bubblegum the baby face? So they're in Manchester. But Bubblegum is from the blue side of Manchester, Manchester City. What
Yes.
is it, where is that in relation to this venue, or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. Most
Yeah.
Manchester fans don't even come from Manchester these days, so
Right.
it's no, it's not quite a sidle division. It's to do with the football clubs, Man City and Man United, the Reds and the Blues, who for almost 100 years been competing against each other.
Right. Right. But yeah, it's to call this a wrestling match, I think would be too generous. But lots of shenanigans. I mean, the asses and dicks and Boston crabs. I mean, this match has it all. Let me tell you.
It's for the drunken fans, and I think some of the fans enjoy this type of thing, and if that is what they enjoy, all fair play to them. Not my cup of tea.
I can't say it's mine either, but the finish comes when so Jack Sexsmith, Bubblegum sticks his hand in his tights, as he often does, rubs his hand all over his dick and balls, I'm assuming, goes to stick his fingers in Jack Sexsmith's mouth, but Jack, he bamboozles him because he wants it, so he shoves Bubblegum's fingers in his mouth, and this throws off Bubblegum, and then allows... I don't even know what happens after that, but that's the thing that happened. Bubblegum counters a stink face from Jack Sexsmith, and then hits an Enziguri, an X-Plex, and then eventually Mr. Cocko comes out, as you mentioned, from Jack Sexsmith, which, like you said, is a condom around his hand, but a super kick blocks it from Bubblegum, and then he hits the ice cream headache, which looked just like a pedigree to me, for the win. So Bubblegum gets the win. And I came out being very thankful for Bubblegum for ending this. So if that was their goal, they met it.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, It was also. It did even go longer than it needed to as well, and I think that was another bigger problem. It was the type of match that wasn't needed in the first place, and then it goes on for longer than it's needed.
Yeah, I would agree. But the raunchiness, it keeps continuing here with the South Pacific power couple, the team of Dahlia Black and TK Cooper, versus Flash Morgan Webster and Pollyanna. So this is actually the first mixed tag match in Progress history, only like the third or fourth women's match ever on the proper chapters. So the women's division is still very new. They're still kind of building people and building rivalries and stuff like that. And that's pretty much the story here. It feels like this was kind of a way to kind of further introduce the team of Dahlia and TK, who I guess are married in real life. I don't know if they were at this point. I know they are now.
Oh, are they actually married? I could have sworn I read something that's something that's not true, because I had to look up because eventually Dahlia Black just seems to fall off the earth. I can't remember when it happens, but I think it's maybe 2019, just completely.
So, I was researching this because and Pollyanna and Dahlia Black both retire within like 2 years of this, which is very interesting because it seems like they're just getting started here. But I know there was a whole like controversy with like Will Ospreay potentially blackballing Pollyanna. I don't know the full story behind that, but Pollyanna hasn't been seen since like 2018, and same with Dahlia Black. So I don't know if you have any further like information on that or what, but
no, it is a terrible case of something happened. Will Ospreay stuck up for somebody else. Whether Will Ospreay truly had the power to blackball her, I'm not sure about. Whether promoters just looked at the whole situation and went, it's a difficult one. Like, I know Will Ospreay was popular, but I don't feel like he would have that much influence, 2 years down the line from what he is, where he is whilst we're watching. He's not the Will Ospreay he is now. Now, I'm sure if he said anything, it would happen. If he told Rev Pro UK, I want this person done with, I'm pretty sure we'd see him done with.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of maybe a little bit of that, but also the fact that Pollyanna, I know she was involved in speaking out and had accusations.
Yeah, she spoke out long before speaking out, and
right.
the way some promotion, I don't want to talk about which promotions treated her, it was quite unfairly. I'll put it that way. Pollyanna didn't deserve to get what she got.
Yeah.
She was a very talented wrestler.
Yeah, she was very good. And it's unfortunate maybe that just killed her drive and to continue wrestling in the UK scene. And maybe that's kind of why she fell off. But yeah, she's really good. Crowd loves her. And it's a shame. I mean, maybe she'll still come back eventually, but who knows?
Yeah, she was the coach. She was the female coach over at the Brojo at this time. So they had so much faith in her. This was a great match, though. You know, to forget about everything else, this was absolutely fantastic. Dahlia, limited to what she could do, did very well, and never absolutely didn't look out of place. She was protected well by TK Cooper and Pollyanna. Just a great, and just seeing Flash so young and again such a talented, you can see why both of these guys are so talented now. And TK Cooper, especially, one of the most underrated wrestlers in the UK right now. He could be a main event talent, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah, because I'm not super familiar with TK. I've only seen a few. He's only been on a few chapters, and a lot of them he was just kind of the second to Dahlia Black. So, but I believe it. Flash Morgan Webster, I agree. I feel like here he comes off like a star, and it's I don't know why that didn't really translate to NXT UK or anything like that, but super talented guy. He only gets better from this point. But I agree. This match, I didn't really have much expectations for this match, but this is probably one of my favorite matches on the card. I mean, I thought it was really fun. A lot of really great false finishes. They made good use of, like, you know, the tag team partners making saves and during certain pins. And I thought TK Cooper came off like a dickhead in this match, which I guess was the idea. I mean, he spends a lot of this. I mean, it's mixed tag, but I mean, the guys and the girls can fight each other. So TK is just giving it to Pollyanna here.
And of course, the kiss tags. Can't forget about the kiss tags.
You a fan of the kiss tags?
It's not in the rule book as far as, but there's no rule against it.
Right. Yeah, they probably didn't think to add that amendment into it, but I guess it's contact. So as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. Yeah, they kiss each other, they tag each other in, which I thought was pretty creative. But of course, they come out, they're all making out, and they're just obnoxious is what their deal is here, which I thought was funny.
I love the name as well, the South Pacific Power Couple. It just works. From
New Zealand, both of them are New Zealand, right?
Yeah, came over to train at the Progress Brojo.
But yeah, TK and Dahlia, they double team on Pollyanna for a lot of this match, and they go for a double senton bomb, but it misses. And this allows Pollyanna to make the hot tag to Flash Morgan Webster, and he's flying all over the place with dives and standing shooting star presses and just getting the crowd hot. And then Pollyanna is able to hit the pollinator onto Dahlia for a 2 count within the South Pacific Power Couple. They fight back with some unique double team moves here. You got TK has, I believe, his Polly up on his shoulders, and then Dahlia comes up with a double stomp onto her back, and then he hits like an attitude adjustment type of move. And but Flash makes the save on the pin, but then the couple then does like a power slam backstabber combo onto Polly for a 2 count. Dahlia is able to hit a poison Rana on the Flash Morgan Webster. So you got this is nonstop action, this match. Ultimately, TK goes for I guess he has this like chain he wraps around his fist, goes to hit Polly with it, but she ducks and goes for the pollinator, which is like an angel's wings facebuster type of move. But Dahlia stops it, and then but ultimately Flash hits a knee in the corner to TK Cooper, and then goes to the top rope, and commentary is like, oh, he's going for his 450 splash, because that's typically what he does, but he adds a little more rotation to it and hits a 630 splash onto TK, and that gives them the win. So fun finish, and fun match.
Not to be pedantic again, but it was Dahlia Black and TK Cooper who were the legal people. I mean, Dahlia Black and Flash were the legal people at this point, because, again, it just breaks down, and your typical independent wrestling, everything, the rules matter up until the last 5 minutes. Rules go out the window. It's really fun, and as you say, it creates so many false finishes that at one point I'm like, oh, it's going a bit too long, but then you just get back into it again, and then suddenly it's as I say, TK and Flash, so talented. It was Flash's injury that held him back at NXT UK, and TK Cooper right now are the Progress Tag Team Champions. They are the current Progress Tag Team Champions. Chuck Mambo, TK Cooper, the Sunshine Machine. And now hold the record for the longest reign and most defenses for the titles.
Well, look at that. So TK Cooper found a new power couple, is what you're telling me. But I do commentary added like another element to this, because so Flash hit the 630, and this is the first time he hit the 630 in Progress. So they kind of, it was like a testament to like Flash kind of like upping his game and like revitalizing his career, because he's coming off of a loss for the Progress title. It was a triple threat between him, Will Ospreay, and Zach Gibson. So this kind of like reboosting his career, I guess. So I like that storytelling element of this as well. But yeah. But after that, I think this is the match that like compensates for the Jack Sexsmith match earlier. So we got Timothy Thatcher.
This is when things get serious.
No knee pads, don't need them. Jack Gallagher versus Timothy Thatcher. And anybody, if you're listening to this and you know these guys, this match is pretty much exactly what you would expect. It was just gritty, very MMA influenced, very influenced by the classic, British catch wrestling. It was just a lot of submissions in this one, a lot of, transitions and counters. I think like one of the only like big power moves here was a German suplex from Jack that sent Thatcher like right on his head, and that led to the finish, which was Jack Gallagher rolling up Timothy Thatcher into a King Crab submission, very Lance Storm-esque how he got into it, which is very smooth. But fun match, and a very welcome change of pace here.
Yeah, this is a grappler's wet dream match. This was just two guys who just excel in so many different aspects of wrestling, and forget Jack's complicated past. Every trainee, every young wrestler should actually go out of their way and watch this match, because it really is just that brilliant. I do believe Thatcher got a gut wrench suplex. Suplex City. He hits it 3 times in a row, which was fantastic. But I love the way how Jack had to compensate at the beginning, because he realized Thatcher was stronger. So he took his leg, took it to the ground, to the mat, and it's just a great match.
Yeah. Jack pretty much attacked the leg of Thatcher throughout the entire match, and then Thatcher attacked Jack's arm. So easy story, simple, and just a fun match. Jack, I wish, man, there's a lot of people in this card. I was like, God, I wish you just weren't an asshole, because I love watching you wrestle. The main event, we see a guy like that too. And so it's like, but, well, we can go back and enjoy it in hindsight, I guess.
He is a phenomenal wrestler, and I think he's bare knuckle boxing these days.
He got a little weird. Got all the tattoo. Yeah. Very, very Conor McGregor-esque. He's still doing like the MMA stuff. I guess it's just bare knuckle.
Yeah.
Does he just like go under a bridge and fight people for money? Is that what he does?
Yeah, William Regal style back in the day.
But that brings us to the second half of the show, and we're kicking that off with Rampage Brown versus Mikey Whiplash. So Michael Gilbert has appeared on a few Progress chapters, but this is the debut of Mikey Whiplash, who I was like vaguely familiar with this character, but I wasn't exactly expecting thigh highs from this guy. Care to explain the Mikey Whiplash character?
I have. I can't. I believe it's something to do with the Sumerian Death Squad. I think when he goes over to like wrestling in Holland or whatnot, he's part of a faction, maybe. And I just guess he had a fetish for thigh highs, and it's all right. I guess it's emo witchcraftian.
He had a lot going. He had the face paint. He had like the I don't know what you call it. It's kind of like the thing that Karrion Kross used to wear, like the flap in front of his tights. No knee pads, just shitty little boots and thigh highs, and the face paint. And he comes out in a mask with horns on it. There's a lot going on. I guess it was interesting to watch. He's a good wrestler, that's for sure.
Yeah, great wrestler, and this was a great match, and this provided the big men slapping meat match.
I would say so.
Been lacking a bit of a heavyweight contest, and it kind of had the stages. At first, it was wrestling like Rampage, and then they went technical. Then they went outside. Then they brawled. Then they smashed each other into the chairs and into the walls. Then Mikey Whiplash works the leg. Then they go back to the power moves, and then Rampage. That transition to the pile driver was brilliant.
Yeah, it was like so Whiplash was on the apron, and then he goes for like a shoulder block through the second and third rope, but Rampage catches him, pulls him into the ring in one fluid motion, hits a pile driver, and that gives Rampage the win. So Rampage gets the win here.
Great sell from Whiplash as well.
Oh man, just bounced him like RVD taking a pile driver from Tommy Dreamer. It was beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I like all the outside, brawling stuff. Sometimes I can get a little like mindless, but I thought this was there was a lot of intent behind it. With Mikey Whiplash, he like saw that Rampage's leg was hurt, so he's taking him and he's like putting his leg on the steps leading up to the ramp and stomping on it. Does a figure, the Bret Hart style figure 4 around the ring post. So really, really cool looking offense from the guy in thigh highs for some reason. But yeah, pretty brutal match, but a good bit of just classical wrestling in this. And it should be noted that Mikey Whiplash hasn't been seen since his street fight with Ligero at Chapter 16, so like over a year ago, and this is when he was Michael Gilbert. So I don't know if that loss like sent him into a spiral, and that's why he's wearing thigh highs and face paint. But
I think in between his appearances as Michael Gilbert, there's a download show that probably something that, because you're just doing the main chapters, you wouldn't have seen. But apparently, he actually takes on and defeats Jimmy Havoc whilst Jimmy Havoc was a champion. That will come into play in a couple of chapters.
Okay, yeah, like the Download Festival, like I glazed through them a little bit. I didn't do a full on watch of it, but yeah, they did mention that on commentary that he popped up during one of those festivals. So
they just had a bunch of hardcore people come in and beat the crap out of Jimmy Havoc. For both nights. I think one of them was RSP, and the other one was Ricochet Payne, and the other one was Whiplash.
That'll always satisfy the crowd. Can't go wrong. But yeah, fun match. And I peeked at the next chapter. And the world title is going to be defended in a Thunder Bastard match, which is like 8 or 9 people or something. Rampage is in it. Flash Morgan Webster, who won a match earlier, is in it. So a lot of this card's kind of, I guess, building people up for that. So I thought it was interesting how they did that. But after that, we got Tommy End of the Sumerian Death Squad versus James Davis of the London Riots. So we're in the midst of the feud between the SDS and the London Riots. The Sumerian Death Squad, I guess the idea was that they turned heel, which was a few chapters ago. They were in a match with the Riots, and they just got themselves intentionally DQ'd, and they just beat down the Riots with chairs and sent, I think it was Rob Lynch, like they powerbombed him like on his neck, and then powerbombed James Davis on some chairs. A pretty brutal beatdown. And I think the idea was for them to be the heels and for the Riots to be the babyface, but you wouldn't know it if you were turning this on because you can't boo Tommy End. I mean, the presentation of this guy is awesome. It's impossible to hate him. What do you think of his presentation here?
Tommy End is the best Alistair Black, Malachi Black.
Yep.
This anti-hero rather than a goth or anti-emo.
You don't need the spooky shit. You don't need it. You just have the guy come out in a vest and tattoos and be a badass.
Because this was a fight. This was just a scrap. Again, something different than what you were seeing right before. This was just people wanting to beat the crap out of each other. I think we saw the gulf in difference in ability, though. With Black just being, just far better than Davis, who was best in a tag team alongside Lynch.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty foregone conclusion, at least to me, that Tommy End was going to win here, especially because Rob Lynch beat Michael Dante at the last chapter, and they're doing the whole deal where, so they have the 2 tag teams, and there's 2 singles match between each person, and whoever wins each match gets to pick a stipulation of their Chapter 27 match. So Rob Lynch won against Michael Dante at the last chapter, and they chose TLC as a stipulation. So this match is to determine the second stipulation, as if you need another one. But it turned out that actually added a lot. But yeah, I agree. Great match. Davis gets his lips busted open, probably from a knee or something. I mean, all the kicks and the knees. I mean, if you know who Aleister Black, Malachi Black is, I mean, you're getting all of the stuff that you want from this guy. I mean, all the pump knees, the double stomps. It was just a brutal match. And James Davis, I think he hung in there as, like you said, he's a tag team guy, but I think the match was still very entertaining. Otherwise, I mean, Davis, he busted out at like a Finley roll into a top rope moonsault into a sit out power bomb for a 2 count. So that was a really good false finish, I thought. And there's one point where, because Davis is his lips busted open, and he's staring down Tommy End, and he just spits his blood in his face. It was just some cool shit in this match. I mean, a couple black masses from Tommy End here. It's not really like his finisher at this point, which is kind of jarring to see, because like Tommy will hit him with a black mass kick, and then James Davis just like gives him a middle finger, and then he like does more offense after that. But the finish comes after like the 3rd black mass kick, followed by a new submission, I guess, that Tommy End is debuting here. It's like an octopus stretch kind of deal. Looked pretty sick, but that makes James Davis submit. So Tommy End gets the win here. I was expecting him to win, but not in that way. What'd you think of the finish of this one?
Dominant finish. Anytime you make your opponent tap out, submit, and it's a type of submission where you have to say, "I quit." You can't actually tap out by the way it's locked in. So it, as I say, just kind of emphasized the golfing class. But they even mentioned it on commentary, the fact that Tommy End is now a big time single superstar, 2-time winner of the 16 karat gold Evolve matches, and he was just so good. And
yeah, I mean, I've seen a handful of his stuff from WXW and like the 16 karat golds and stuff like that. He just comes off like such a monster when he's allowed to be so. And it comes off like that in this match here. But so Tommy gets the win. So he gets the opportunity to add a stipulation to their tag team match at the next chapter. And not only is it going to be TLC, but the losing team can never team again in Progress. So that's a stipulation he adds, which I thought was, I mean, the Riots, I mean, you don't have to spoil it for me, but I can't imagine the Riots losing this. And it just makes sense for Tommy End to kind of have an avenue to go and be a singles guy.
Yeah, so we can see the direction things are going even before. Some things are always kind of a little obvious, and this is kind of one of them, especially since he's already main eventing elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. So I always wondered what happened to Michael Dante, but I guess this is it. I mean, they split up, and then
he's still wrestling in Pro Wrestling Holland on a regular thing, and doesn't get outside of Holland that I see much, or if he's doing it is with smaller promotions across Europe. I see he's very active still with Pro Wrestling Holland.
It's good. I do like Michael Dante. It's just Tommy Yen just came off like the star in that pair, so it's bound to happen at some point.
Yeah.
But fun stuff there. But that brings us to the main event of Chapter 26. We got the Progress title on the line. We got the new champion, Marty Scurll, defending against Mark Haskins. So, I mean, I love Mark Haskins. I mean, he's become my favorite, like, in this era, for sure. And Haskins is coming off. He's, like, on a 4-match winning streak, I believe they said. He's got wins over Ciampa, Zach Gibson, Paul Robinson, Bubblegum. So Haskins has been built very well for this match. And, of course, Marty's on a win streak of his own. And he just beat Will Ospreay at the last chapter to claim the Progress title. Really fun match. I mean, I thought, they kept the shenanigans to a minimum, which was good to see, because in the match that Marty won the title, there was handcuffs, there were, I don't know, probably screwdrivers and shit. Like, there was a ton of stuff happening. There was like a pile of umbrellas, but only one umbrella in this match. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty straightforward, just a really good wrestling match between two guys that seemed to have really good chemistry. I don't know. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, this was a great match. See, because I was gutted. The last show you had my co-host on was the Will Ospreay Mark Haskins match, and that was so good. This, why not quite as good? This was still absolutely amazing. Two great wrestlers. Again, if you're a young wrestler, young trainee, you need to be watching matches like these, especially for the transitions, the reversals. There's no wasted movement. There's no wasted motion. Everything's impactful. Everything mattered. They was trying to so hard turn Marty Scurll into the next Jimmy Havoc for Progress. And the problem being was the fans respected how good of a wrestler Scurll was, that he could never achieve the heat, no matter what he tried to do to achieve heat. He could never get the heat that Havoc could achieve.
Yeah, I mean, Havoc was trying to behead people in the middle of the ring, so it's hard to match that heat.
Yeah,
by hitting somebody with an umbrella. So and maybe it's just you can't match that. But that is kind of the vibe that I get. That Marty Scurll is trying to that it's their new heel. But it isn't as... I mean, his matches are probably better than Jimmy Havoc's. And I love Marty Scurll as a wrestler for sure. And his character has a lot of value in its own right. But yeah, it seems like it just doesn't have the heat, at least so far, that Jimmy Havoc did. But still, he comes off like a champion. I mean, coming out, we're full villain mode. It took a while to transition into it. But he's got the fur coat, the umbrella, the glasses. I mean, he's all in it. No more Party Marty for Progress. So, and then Mark Haskins, just straight up. I mean, they're kind of similar styles, really. So I think that's probably why they work so well together. But Haskins, his transitions. I mean, because you got Marty Scurll, who his thing's the chicken wing, and he's like relentless about it, like the entire match. He wants the chicken wing, but Mark Haskins is so like apt in like the submission game and jiu-jitsu. So it's just all like the transitions into arm bars, and like Scurll will go for like a power bomb, and then Haskins will counter into a triangle choke. So things like that. God, the way Haskins does that roll into the sharpshooter, I still don't understand how he does it, but it looks so smooth every time. It's so good.
When he had his ROH run and he started using that as his finisher as well, and he just seemed to be getting momentum. In fact, he's actually owed an ROH championship match, Tony Khan.
There we go. Let's get the word out there.
He was a number one contender before. I think Rush was the champion at the time so he's owed a title shot. Bring him, let him have it again at Wembley. That would be amazing. Ooh. Mark Haskins versus
Claudio.
That would be such a good match as well.
See, you're just getting my hopes up for things that aren't going to happen, and I don't.
It won't. Of course, it won't happen. But oh my god. Yeah, Haskins, you can see the injury that he's sporting at the moment in this one. Eventually, it's going to force him to retire for about 2 years, and then make a big comeback. So you can see the starting of that in this match, because I think it was off the power bomb. He hits his arm quite badly on the injured arm, but
the power bomb against the ring post that he took in this match.
He kind of lands just a little bit awkwardly, and you see the arm and the shoulder just take a really nasty bump. And then, considering it was already hurting before the match,
he came out in the kinesio tape. He had that tape on too, the last chapter. So it's obviously a thing that's nagging him. So
yeah, and just in the middle of what will eventually become his best run in his career, and eventually, as I say, he'll have to give it up. But I'm not going to spoil everything that happens. Haskins is about to have a rise, and it was long overdue.
Well, I'm looking forward to that for sure. But yeah, so really, I mean, fun. The counters, I mean, it was just back and forth throughout the entire match. Scurll goes for a running European uppercut, gets countered into a stretch muffler from Haskins, who I feel like Haskins is the only guy I've ever seen put on a stretch muffler that doesn't look like shit.
Yeah.
It always looks so brutal.
I love the X-Plex, which he counters into the armbar as well, where that was just so bloody good. Both of them just so great.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one match that you need to go back and rewatch, anybody listening, it's this one for sure. It gets pretty brutal at some points too. Like you said, the power bomb against the ring post from Marty to Haskins. Marty does his classic like apron super kick where the guy's on the floor and he's on the apron, but does it to the back of Haskins' head. But then towards the end, kind of the ending stretch here, Marty hits a superplex, but Haskins counters into a small package, but he kicks out. Then Marty hits a super kick, pins. Haskins kicks out, but then Scurll just transitions into a cattle mutilation. So a lot of that type of stuff towards the end here. Chicken wing attempt by Scurll, but gets countered into a made in Japan from Haskins for a 2 count. And then at this point, Marty's desperate. So he grabs the umbrella, throws it at Haskins. Haskins catches it. Scurll does. He wants Haskins to hit him with the umbrella because he wants to get DQ'd. Haskins isn't doing it, so Scurll spits in his face. And then Haskins gives him a middle finger, and then Scurll gives him a low blow. It rolls him up. 2 count. I bid on that one. I thought that was going to be a finish. But the finish comes. It's very Bryan Danielson-esque with the 12-6 elbows with the arm trapped. You get the stomps with the wrist clutched. Haskins is limp at this point. He's just been knocked out. And then Scurll throws on the chicken wing, which is pretty much just a formality at this point. So Haskins passes out and Scurll retains. So again, great match. And I think this is like the very not dominant, but it was very like definitive win that Scurll needed to kind of send his title reign into more success, I thought.
Yeah, because I love the commentator fact about the fact that he had lost more championship matches than anybody else from Progress.
That was just a shitty stat to throw out there. Like, what did Marty do?
Great stat. But you think back to his like first chapter, second chapter, then he had one against Jimmy Havoc, then he had at least one against Will Ospreay.
Mm-hmm. He was also 0-4 against Haskins at this point, which I forgot they had so many matches because they had the like with the Screw Indie Wrestling stuff very early on. There was the Thunder Bastard match where they were the final 2, and they had like another 1-on-1, I think, at some point. So it was bound to get a win at some point, I guess.
Absolutely. If you just cut the first 2 matches out of this Progress show, or in fact, actually, if you just cut the second match out of this Progress show, this is a fantastic show, to be honest. When you think about all the great matches that did go down, still a transitional period. They didn't have the big stars anymore. They were building new stars. Mm-hmm. They were missing that Jimmy Havoc Will Ospreay rivalry that they've managed to produce a couple of different times with, let's say, Pete Dunne and Travis Banks. And right now with Spike Trivet and Cara Noir, if there's anyone that's lived up to Havoc's heel heat, it's Spike Trivet right now at Progress. He's absolutely excellent. They've got their first cage match coming up this weekend.
Wow, really?
between Coronado and Spike Trevay, and it's the first sold-out Progress show since the new owners have taken over. So, big congrats to the new owners of Progress. And as I say, it's all because of this rivalry. They haven't even announced a full card yet.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I've seen a handful of Spike Trevay stuff. I haven't like sat down and watched a match of his, but I've kind of followed their Twitter account and seen stuff that's happened. So it's good that they've found some steam again. Yeah, Marty's trying to. I should mention that the aftermath of this match. So Marty, he's celebrating. He's retained his title. He rolls out of the ring, grabs a chair, and finds Mark Haskins' wife, who's in the crowd. Is she a wrestler, by the way?
I don't know if she's ever actually trained. I know she does valet for Mark these days full time.
Right.
So, in fact, she did it during his RH run as well.
I knew she was involved somehow because I was actually looking for Mark Haskins merch, and one of his shirts has him and like a redheaded lady on the shirt. So I assumed that was her. But
I bet somebody probably could dig up if she's ever had a match or not. But I'm not 100% sure she has.
But at this point, it's just Haskins' wife that's in the crowd, and Marty Scurll walks out and like stares her down. Jim Smallman keeps him away from her, but Scurll gets back in the ring, wraps the chair around Haskins' arm, and Pillmanizes Mark Haskins, stomps on his arm, and I guess because he's on the next card, so I guess it's not really writing him off, but it's kind of just furthering. Yeah, not yet. So it's kind of just furthering that injury that he's working with, I guess.
I think they were hoping that this would be their next big rivalry, but I think due to timings and the fact that Scurll eventually gets pulled off to Japan,
right,
screws up some plans.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like they were setting up for something big here, but good stuff either way, regardless of hindsight. But I would say Chapter 26, definitely a solid show. I mean, this era of Progress, you don't really get a lot of misses. You might get the occasional Mr. Cocko, but all in all, I enjoyed this one. Any other thoughts on this chapter?
Thatcher Jack, Haskins Scurll, Rampage, Whiplash. They were all just worth it. This makes every part of that show worth it, really.
I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of tights on this show, but not quite enough tea. But hey, if you're listening and you're into tea and tights, I would strongly suggest you go check out the Tea and Tights Wrestling Podcast. Once again, Andy, thank you for making that. There you go. Get you some merch, all that stuff.
We do need some merch. I've got some ideas for some merch, and we just need to actually pull a trigger.
Is that not something you're selling? Is that just
no, yeah, this is we like to wear this to the shows so people know who we are at least, and
smart.
Good branding for us. But we do have some ideas, and as I say, there are some big plans in the works. I know we haven't done anything for a couple of weeks, but as I say, there's some couple of big things coming next week.
Oh yeah, where can everybody find you, listen to you? All that stuff.
Well, it is at Tea and Tights Pod. That is Facebook and Twitter. Our YouTube channel, which we will be launching properly now, and we'll still be part of bodyslam.net as well on their YouTube channel, and part of the John's Podcasting Network over in the UK, and we're on Spotify as well somewhere.
Right.
And it's the best place for if you want to know what's going on at the British wrestling scene right now. We've got you covered from reviews, previews to the biggest news.
Right. All the GIMP talk you can get on the Tea and Tights Wrestling Podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back on, by the way, because I do love watching these old progresses. It is great to go back and check out the history.
Absolutely. It seems like I have you guys on every time Haskins gets a title match. So next time that happens, I'll be sure to bring you guys back on.
Absolutely.
Once again, thank you to Andy from the Tea and Tights Podcast for joining me, for hopping across the pond and joining me on this episode. Always a good time with Andy and Big Dick Dan, for that matter, from the Tea and Tights Wrestling Podcast. Great group of guys. Go check them out. Like I said, all their info in the description below. Apron bump. Follow me. Follow the YouTube. Follow my MySpace. Follow my Chatterbait. Do it all. Kiss me on the lips. Slap me on the dick. And call me a little bitch. You know, when people are like, hey, Kyle, why don't you does anybody you know listen to your podcast? I'm like, no. And they're like, why not? It's because I say stupid shit like that. But hi, if you're out there listening, Mom. But with that, I think that about does it. Hope everybody has a lovely day, lovely evening, lovely morning, perhaps, if you're listening. I think those are the options. So, yeah. No, you hang up. Thank you guys so much for listening. Love you all. I'm hard.
Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah, yeah.